Hey guys, it's Lisa and welcome to my channel. Today I thought, since it's kind of getting late to do Christmas videos, because most of you have finished your decorating and things like that, so and it's too late for us to sell items like that, so I thought that I would do some of my personal gifts. And I'm just doing some small gifts. And I actually have a sister who wants a case to put her phone down inside. And because when she puts it in her purse, although it's in a case like mine is here, or a cover, for some reason her phone keeps having a mind of its own. So I guess some buttons are getting pushed or something. So I was going to make her a sleeve, but the fabric that I want to use on hers is not this. And so I have that fabric ordered. But I just thought that I would do some of these anyway and have them on hand to give them as gifts. Now, I don't know about you guys, but there's always someone that I didn't think of that will come with a gift, and I feel terrible when I don't have something ready to go. So this one obviously is a little more limited than some of the gifts that I do. Sometimes I'll just get a box of candy or something like that I can have pre-wrapped, so that it goes just for anyone. But this will make a cute little gift, and I do have somebody else in mind that I can give this to. So I found these little corduroy pants, and they're child's size, and I thought that this would make a good fabric to make a case from. So I'm using my phone here to measure, and that's because mine is kind of a medium size. And so for most people, if I make this just a little bit loose for mine, then most people will be able to fit their phone in it. And generally, I edit Winston out of my videos, but I just thought it might be fun to share what I go through, and I'm sure many of you who have pets go through the same thing, trying to craft when a pet is trying to get your attention. But this used to be his room, and many of you know that. And when I added my craft room at home, that was the only room I had to use. And so he still has his things in there, but primarily it's my craft room. And he still thinks this is his room. So, and I guess it is. I can't take it away from him. But he also loves for me to spend time in here with him. And it just makes his room a lot funner. So he doesn't hate that I have the craft room in here. He actually really likes that. But to him, it's still his room. Now, I've cut these two out the same size and left room for my seam allowance. But before I put them together, I need to add whatever embellishments that I want for each side, because obviously when I put them together, I'm not going to be able to add them. So I'm taking some of this trim here, and they have the wider trim now at the Dollar Tree, and I always liked the trim that they had that was thinner than this and like this, but I like now that they have the smaller as well, or the wider as well. Now, when I pinned this at first, I was covering the whole top. Then I decided that I wanted to see just the very end of that brown, and that helps me line it up also. Now, these could easily be stitched by hand, but as you can see here, I have taken it to the machine and stitched it, and now it's ready to add any other embellishment that I want to add. And I have this little napkin, and it's just a little vintage napkin. And 3 of the corners have this look to them. And so I'm going to put this on one side, and then, but then on the other side, I'm going to do what is on the corner there at the top. I'm going to add that to it. Now, I thought about making that the front, but then I decided that this piece that I'm adding right here is what I want to put on the front, because I'm going to add some scripture to this one, and this will give me a good place to stamp it. So I cut the little design out of that other corner, and I'm just going to use it kind of like an applique here. And so I'm just going to pin this in place and then stitch all around the outside of it. And here I've already done that, so everything is stitched in place. And when I meant to mention, here I'm stamping some scripture on this. And people will ask me where I got my scripture stamps. I've had most of these for a very long time, especially the wooden ones. So I don't really have a link to send for that, but I do have some other small scripture stamps that I can link, and I will link those in the description, and I'll just give you some different ones to choose from. But I didn't mention that on the top, when I added that trim, I stitched along the very top of the trim and also along the very bottom of the trim. So now I'm just pinning this right sides together, and then I'm going to take it to the machine and stitch all the way around, except obviously I'm going to leave that top open. And then I trimmed around the seam allowance to make it more uniform and to make it look better when it's actually turned. And this one was pretty easy to turn because of the size. And then I decided that this needed a closure, and I should have done that ahead of time and didn't. So since I didn't, I took a piece of elastic, probably about 2 inches long or 3 maybe, and folded it in half and put a little square of that same fabric over the top of where I added that to the inside and then stitched around it. And I wish I had shown more of that here, but that was a pretty simple fix. And then I stitched a larger button onto the front there so that that elastic can stretch around that button and close it very easily. I really like the way this one turned out. What I would change about it, I guess, is maybe that I either use a thicker fabric or that I line it. And I didn't do either on this one. But I still was happy with how it turned out. Now, because I wanted a thicker fabric, and the one that I want to do for my sister, I actually want it to be leather, or at least a leather look, and so I went thrifting because I ordered hers through Amazon, and I think I mentioned that, but I've got to wait on it to come. So I went thrifting and found, I was looking for a purse the color that I wanted it, but this one wasn't, but I really love the color of this purse. It's a little too much for me, so it's not something that I would carry, and I think I paid $2 for this, and it has like a pleather material, and I think that will work really well for an eyeglass case. And I'm going to be lining this, even though it's thick, because for eyeglasses, we all know that you need something soft on the inside so that you don't scratch your glasses sliding them in and out. And if you watch me long, you know that I love to use warm and natural fabric. And that's a quilt batting, if you're not aware of that. And but I think it will make the perfect fabric to go on the inside of this eyeglass case as well. And I'm just loving this old-fashioned look of the pattern that is on this purse. And what I'm going to do is not only use this back, but I'm going to save the rest of this because I know that I'll be using it for future projects. I've just got to figure out what I want to make of them. I know that the pockets on the front would be perfect for something. I just don't know what yet. Now, I know I said this was going to be an eyeglass case, and it is, but I'm just using my phone to somewhat decide what. I know I could have gotten up and found a case, but I do very little measuring, and I just kind of make it work as I go. When I do my stitching, I will get the eyeglass case and make sure that I'm going to have plenty of room to put the eyeglasses in. Now, to add the liner to this, I just folded each side so that it had a hem, and then I did that with both pieces of fabric, and then I put the wrong sides together of this and just kind of butted those hems up to line up together. And when I pinned it together, I left that center open so that I could pin the little piece of elastic for the hook this time, because I think that even with eyeglass cases, you're going to need a closure. And then I took this to the machine and stitched that all in place. And then I did that with the other side as well, except obviously it didn't need the elastic. And then I measured for my eyeglasses and stitched the wrong sides together so that I could turn this inside out. I will say this part was really hard because of the stiff fabric. And then I decided I wanted a little bit of embellishment, and obviously it was a little late on that, so I just took some hot glue and glued some lace that had some of that pink in it around the top. And I just glued it right over that seam. Now, this is not something that will likely be washed, so I think that will be good with the hot glue here. And then I decided that I wanted some lace showing on this, some of that same lace showing on this button. So I picked a larger button that had 2 holes, and I took a large needle, which was really hard to get through this fabric, but I needed it to be large so that I could thread that lace through it. And then I just took it through once, and once I got that needle pulled through, and then took it back out and then tied a knot in that. And it just made a pretty little embellishment, and this ribbon will hold the button on good. So I just tied that off and cut it, leaving a little of it showing. Obviously I left the ribbon long enough to tie it good, but then I just trimmed, and that just kind of gave a little bit of texture to that button and added just a little bit of that pink, and I like the way this turned out. So then I decided that I wanted a matching key ring. And I know you guys have seen those straps that you just kind of strap on your wrist and to keep up with your keys. And I'm just kind of making that along that line. And so I just cut the little piece that holds that strap on. And now I am measuring this, the length that I need it to go on your wrist. And I'll just cut it to make sure that it's plenty long enough for that. And then I just stitched that right along the seam at the bottom, and also decided that I wanted to add a little bit of that pink lace to this as well. So I went ahead and cut that, the length to go all the way around the strap there. So I did that and then took it to the machine and stitched it. Now, I started really testing my machine and tested it a little too far and ended up breaking a needle on this stuff. But again, I knew it was a little bit much for my machine, and I kept going, so I paid the price for it. But that's just a simple thing. I can fix that. Now, here's where I've wrapped that all the way around and then pinned that the best that I could until I could get it to the machine. And after I stitched it in place, I decided that I wanted to do the same thing with a button on this one. So I threaded some of that lace through. Again, it wasn't easy to get through, but I threaded it through and tied it on. No, actually, I think what I ended up doing on this one is going ahead and threading that through the button. And then once I tied the knot in the front of the button, I just hot glued this one in place. Again, this is not something that will get washed, and since this button doesn't have to be used as a closure, then gluing it was just fine. And I made another eyeglass case by layering the fabric, muslin fabric, over the top of the Warm and Natural, so that the Warm and Natural would be the inside. And now I'm going to add some transfers to the muslin. Now this is just a rough guess at how much I'm going to need. And then I'm just adding this transfer to the fabric right in the center. And this one is going to be much easier because I'm going to let the seam show on this one. So I had some pieces of transfer that I've had left over for a long time, and I just thought this would be a good way to, I'm just going to use this one more or less to add color because I'm going to be adding lace over the top of this one. But I'm just going to add this transfer to the fabric, and if you've never tried that, it's very, very easy to add a transfer to fabric. So I'm just going to put this on here, and then I'm going to end up layering lace over the top of that. Now I will say that although I'm layering the lace over the top of it, and that will help this stay on even better, this is one that I wouldn't wash. So because I don't think that the transfer would hold up well. So now you can either fold this or cut it and fold it. I'm going to go ahead and fold this. And now I can measure for my eyeglasses and put my seams where they need to be. And then I can cut those off when I'm finished. And then before I stitch this together, I need, of course, to add my lace. And so I just stitched that around the front. And now I'm going to take some linen fabric here, and I'm going to stamp some scripture on it and add that to the front. Now, although I like the raw edges of tearing this fabric, I just ended up cutting this out, and it will kind of fray on its own. So I just pinned it in place where I wanted it to be, and then I took it to the machine and stitched all around the outside. And obviously I mean all around this little applique that I made. And now I'm going to add my other embellishments before I stitch this together. So after I stitched the trim in place, then on both sides, then I took my eyeglass case and made sure that I had this the size that I needed before I stitched it together. Now after I stitched this together, it didn't need to be turned, obviously, because I'm showing my seams. But I did make sure that after it was stitched, that I trimmed my seams very neatly. And then you'll get some very natural fraying of the seams, but because I left them so small, it will still be a neat finish. I also made some bookmarks to go with some of these. And I just took a piece of cardstock, the size that I wanted it, and then I wrapped it in fabric on both sides. And in this case, I just added the lace to one side so that you could see that pink through it. And then I trimmed it and stitched all around the outside. And then I trimmed away the excess fabric. And then I stamped some scripture on that same linen fabric and cut it out and stitched that to the front of the bookmark. And the good thing about the bookmark is you can add your embellishments at any point, since you're not having to stitch anything together. And with each embellishment that I added, I stitched it on. So the extra stitching just adds a lot more character to the bookmark. And I didn't mention that I went ahead and used a hole punch on the top of the bookmark before I added the fabric. That way all I had to do to make a hole was just take my scissors and kind of poke through that hole that was already there. And then I took a couple or a few strips of lace and set the loop in the center through the front and pulled the ends through and just cut that so that I had a small little tassel thing on the top. And that's all that I did to this little bookmark. And I did a few other this same day, but didn't get everything filmed. But everything that I did was just really simple little designs. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you in the next. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great evening, and God bless you and your family.